Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome back to Cinematic Reviews. As always, I'm your host, Chris, and this is a show about all things movies and TV. And we got another fantastic episode for you all today. We're going to go over some news and reactions that have been hitting the storylines this week. And then that'll lead into today's featured film, the 2015 Fantastic Four, continuing our journey through all these Fantastic Four films, leading up to the MCU's take of the Fantastic Four First Steps, which is currently out in theaters today. So go ahead and check that out and get ready for the review episode coming out next week on the show. And then we will end like we always do with rankings. I'll be going over my top 10 worst Marvel films that have come out so far. So I'm excited to continue with the Fantastic Four with you today. A couple of reminders at the top of the episode. You can watch the show every week at youtube.com/the cinematic reviews. You can also listen to the audio version on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and many more platforms. You can also follow the show on Facebook, X, and Instagram. I post a lot of artwork from the episodes, announcements coming up for the schedule, and other news from the Hollywood sphere. The biggest news to hit the world was the tragic passing of Hulk Hogan a couple of days ago. He unfortunately passed away at the age of 71 due to cardiac arrest in Florida. And then before that, we tragically lost Ozzy Osbourne as well due to his constant battles with Parkinson's disease. So those are the biggest headlines, and I've posted both on those on the social media, so go ahead and check those out. I also post on the Popcorn Scale, so check out that artwork and all my rankings for those films. Let's head into the episode today with some more news and a couple of reactions. So, as I mentioned, Hulk Hogan, the famous WWE wrestler, passed away at the age of 71 due to cardiac arrest at his Florida home. He, of course, it's been known for many, many years, the steroid use, the drug use, all that through the WWE. So it's really no surprise that eventually, these guys end up suffering from any kind of medical ailment, which would be heart problems or any other organ function because of all, the heavy steroid use that they use in the WWE throughout the years. But still, it's a huge loss to not only wrestling fans, but the world as a whole. I think everybody has known of Hulk Hogan in some capacity in their lifetime. He's such an iconic figure. He showed up in a few Hollywood films. I think the most famous one would be his appearance in Rocky 3, going up against Sylvester Stallone's Rocky Balboa. So, it's a huge blow for the world losing an icon like Hulk Hogan. But our thoughts and prayers go out to his family and his friends. So, couple of reactions for you today. The Fantastic Four First Steps. This is the MCU's take on the Fantastic Four. Is out now in theaters. I got the chance to watch it, the first showing on Thursday in my home city, and I really loved it. I won't get into any details of it because I'll be releasing the review episode in a couple of days. But I just wanted to mention, it was an awesome experience in the theater. We finally got a really good Fantastic Four film. The casting is great. The set design is great. The music is incredible. The plot and the story isn't anything spectacular, but it works and it made sense in the world that they are trying to create around the Fantastic Four. But really, for me, the casting and the music is what really did it for me. Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards was incredible. Vanessa Kirby did a really good job with Sue Storm. Joseph Quinn, who is starting to become one of my favorite up-and-coming actors right now. He was incredible as Human Torch. And then we have Ebon Moss-Bachrach portraying Ben, a.k.a. The Thing. Most of the film, he is in that motion capture suit. But we do get to see Ebon's face in a few scenes where they do some flashbacks to their travels in space. So that was really cool to see him. But yeah, they were great. Ralph Ineson plays the voice of Galactus. They finally did Galactus correct. I totally trashed uh, Fox's take on the last episode of the show where I covered Rise of the Silver Surfer. I really liked their take on Silver Surfer, but the MCU's take with Shia LaBeouf, uh, it's kind of like a different iteration of Silver Surfer, and I know a lot of people have been showing their negative views on that choice to go that route instead of the iconic, more straightforward Silver Surfer male version. But bringing in Shia LaBeouf was a nice, I guess, fresh take on the Fantastic Four. I think it's too cookie cutter if they would have went the same route as Rise of Silver Surfer and did the male version. But again, I still love, the male version. That is the iconic Silver Surfer that everybody knows. But now, in the way the Marvel universe is working now, I mean, there's going to be different iterations, different versions of these characters. We have Anthony Mackie as Captain America. We have all these younger actors eventually going to replace the original Avengers. Eventually Tom Holland's going to get replaced. Bruce Banner might be getting replaced with his son or She-Hulk. Thor seems to be possibly getting replaced by his adoptive daughter. Haley Steinfeld, who plays Kate Bishop in the Hawkeye show, seems to be on the verge of replacing Jeremy Renner. And of course, Florence Pugh has pretty much taken over the Black Widow spot from Scarlett Johansson. So, I mean, with the multiverse saga in the MCU, we're going to be getting all these different variations. I mean, Robert Downey Jr. is even returning as Doctor Doom in the next Avengers movie. So it's no issue to me, and it didn't affect my view of the movie at all. I know a lot of people are probably going into this movie with preconceived notions that they're going to hate it because they changed an iconic character from, a male to a female. That doesn't bother me personally. I still go open-minded in all these movies. So, and I had a blast, and I encourage everybody to do so as well. This is somebody else's take on the iconic characters. Everything is not going to be up to your standards, but I personally like to go into these open-minded and encourage everybody to do so as well. So check out the Fantastic Four First Steps out now in theaters, and get ready for the Cinemac Reviews review episode coming out in a couple of days. One last reaction. I finally got the chance to watch the movie The Amateur, which came out early in the year. This was currently streaming on Hulu, so I was able to sit down and finally watch that. This is actually a remake of the 1980s film by the same title. This stars Rami Malek as Heller, who is a CIA decoder, I guess you could be the easiest way to understand his job. He's given a set of either codes or sequences of voice recordings, and he has to kind of piece apart the story and figure out what is going on or what is going to happen. Unfortunately, his wife ends up getting kidnapped and killed, as seen in the trailer with the footage sent to the CIA. He then goes on a warpath to avenge her death, finding out the killers throughout the world. So it's kind of a, I guess, discount version of Jack Ryan. That's the first thing I got to take out of this, was that this seems like a very interesting Jack Ryan plot if Jack Ryan ever did this. So that's kind of my comp to it, which is why I actually enjoyed this a lot. Rami Malek is an actor that I've been following for the last few years, and I think he's a terrific actor, and he was great in this role. We also get Rachel Brosnahan, who is kind of new to the stream. She, of course, plays Lois Lane in James Gunn's Superman, but this came out before that, and I had no idea. If I would have known that, I would have seen this sooner for sure. But she was great as Rami Malek's wife. Not in a whole lot of scenes, but she's still great in what she is. John Bernthal even shows up. He is kind of a CIA hitman that kind of befriends Rami Malek a few times. Then we also get the great Lawrence Fishburne popping up in here as kind of a mentor to Rami Malek as he trains himself to go into the field for the CIA to take down these killers. So yeah, it's a very interesting movie. I haven't seen the remake. I didn't even know it was a remake until I was doing research for the show today. But definitely check out The Amateur on Hulu or go ahead and buy it. This movie might be one that I buy once it gets down to like 10 or $5 on Vudu. But yeah, looking at my popcorn scale, I give this 3 popcorns. I was very surprised by how much I enjoyed it. It's not the greatest movie of the year, but it was still kind of a churn your brain off action film, Jack Ryan style. So if you're a huge fan of Jack Ryan, you're probably gonna like enjoy this one a lot. So check out The Amateur today, currently streaming on Hulu. That's all the news and reactions I have for today. Let's head over to the feature film Fantastic Four. Hey everyone, I'm here today to tell you about my new podcast, The End Zone Report, that will be launching in August. Each week I will tackle the NFL with game reactions, matchup previews, fantasy corner, and even some bets. So check out the End Zone Report coming in August 2025. The podcast will launch the video version, youtube.com/the End Zone Report, and the audio version will launch on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music.
When I grow up, I want to be the first person to teleport himself.
Even if you could build it.
I've already built it.
Is it next to your flying car?
I'm not working on that anymore. Reed, you're insane. Thanks.
It is our duty as human beings to push forward into the unknown. But sometimes you're looking to discover one thing and you find something else.
I just want to fix my friends.
We can't change the past, but we can change the future.
I'm gonna need a heat-resistant workshop and a big-ass sunroof.
They are dangerous and powerful, which makes them extremely valuable to the government.
You promised me you wouldn't use my kids as weapons.
You think you've had power handed to you? You don't know anything about what's coming. What is coming?
Doom.
This is our chance to make a difference.
We're family.
If we do this, we do it our way.
What if we say no?
Say yes. This is the end of your world and the beginning of mine. He's stronger than any of us.
He's not stronger than all of us.
So the 2015 Fantastic Four movie is one that I've been dreading / excited to talk about because it is one of the worst Marvel movies I've ever seen. It's one of the worst Marvel movies that has ever been made. And walking out of the theater when this came out back in 2015, I was very, very disappointed in it. I remember all the trailers coming out. People were just like, "Oh my God, Human Torch is a black man." Which I don't care. That's not my issue with the film at all. Michael B. Jordan's actually pretty good in this film, and I like his take on Human Torch. For me, it was how they did Doctor Doom. It was just straight up garbage. The Thing looked very terrible. Miles Teller was not convincing as Reed Richards. Kate Mara was fine as Sue Storm, but she wasn't anything spectacular. Wasn't even close to the level that was Jessica Alba. The story was just ridiculous. They changed the origins, how they get their powers. Instead of going into space and getting it from a storm, they build this interdimensional travel machine, teleportation machine that takes them to another dimension, and that's how they get their powers, which, cool. If this wasn't a Fantastic Four movie, this would probably be a decent superhero film. But for them slapping on the Fantastic Four just makes this movie even worse. And that's pretty much why this film is one of the worst. The music is fine. The CGI is okay. But yeah, it's just a straight up bad movie and a terrible, terrible Marvel movie. It came out on August 7th, 2015. So we are vastly approaching the 10-year mark of this film, and we still can't get out of our heads. It was directed by Josh Trank, who has made a name for himself. He actually did one of my favorite movies ever, a little movie called Chronicle, which also stars Michael B. Jordan. If you're not familiar with Chronicle, it is one of those lost footage movies where three kids stumble across this meteorite that gives them superpowers. So I gotta imagine with Josh Trank doing that movie and that being a surprise hit for a lot of moviegoers, they're like, okay, let's see how he does with Fantastic Four, since he has done it with Chronicle, which it sucks because he has gone on record, and I'm kind of stepping on fun facts right now, but he has gone on record publicly as this was not his original version of the movie. This is the Frankenstein version from the studio, very similar to what Zack Snyder went through with his Justice League, where they studio kicked him out, brought in Joss Whedon, and kind of Frankenstein that movie. This seems to be the same case, where they took the footage that they felt was correct and reshot a bunch of stuff. Josh Trank has gone on record to say you can easily tell the reshoots by the way Kate Mara's hair looks. She had to cut her hair shorter for a movie coming out, so she is wearing a wig in the reshoots. So those are easily spotted. I found a couple of them. A lot of them seems to be in the lab. That's where a lot of the reshoots went. And then some of the action sequences too, you can tell that she's wearing a wig. So, but yes, a very, very terrible Marvel movie. Going through the cast, we've got Miles Teller as Reed Richards. He is kind of the main character. This story is really Reed's story on how he was a kid, growing up as a weird person, making this teleportation device in his garage. Eventually, Ben, played by Jamie Bell's character, he ends up becoming friends with him. They start building this machine together, entering it into the science fair, and all that. So, and I still don't understand how they got disqualified. I mean, they created teleportation, or they discovered teleportation. Like, how does that not get them a Nobel Prize, let alone a science fair ribbon? But instead, they get disqualified for breaking a basketball hoop. That whole science fair scene was ridiculous. And it just doesn't make sense for what they built. You know, they jokingly say, "Oh, the potato clock took second, and their teleportation device got disqualified." It just doesn't make sense, and that scene didn't really need to be in the movie. It's just another scene that I really, really hate. But Miles Teller is a really good actor, and it's unfortunate that this will always be in his kind of history of Hollywood. He is most famous for Whiplash, which he stars along J.K. Simmons as this up-and-coming drummer going to this prestigious music school. And then, of course, he was in Top Gun Maverick alongside Tom Cruise as the son of Goose. He plays Rooster in there. And then he also was in the Divergent films with Shailene Woodley, and a bunch of other stuff. He was in The Gorge with Anya Taylor-Joy, which I haven't seen yet. That is on my list to watch. He looks very good in there. We also have The Offer, which was kind of the prequel to The Godfather and how they made that film in Hollywood. That was a Paramount Plus series, I think. He was pretty good in there as well, as one of the producers. He was in War Dogs with drawing a blank now. Jonah Hill as they are Gunn. smugglers or gun salesmen, I guess you could say, in the Middle East. Yeah, he's been in a ton of movies. I think the first thing I ever saw him in was playing himself as in Project X, which is a very awesome movie. I'm hoping to do that on the podcast as well. But that's Reed Richards. I mean, he's fine. I just didn't believe him as Reed Richards, as this leader of the group. I think he was extremely miscast for sure. Then we have Kate Mara, who is another actress that I absolutely love. It's just unfortunate that she is tied to this movie. She plays Sue Storm, who would eventually become the Invisible Woman. She herself has been in a bunch of ones. The Martian, Shooter with Mark Wahlberg. I think the first thing I ever saw her in was House of Cards along Kevin Spacey. That was the big Netflix show to kick off that streaming. She was in an episode of Black Mirror, which is also a Netflix series. So yeah, she is great as an actress. It's just she was greatly miscast as well as Sue Storm. I just didn't really believe her as Sue. I think Jessica Alba for sure did a much better job. Same thing with Reed Richards. I think Johan Griffith did a way more better job than Miles Teller, just because I think they were just given different directions and they had a little bit more to kind of sink their teeth into. This script is pretty bad, so I think all these actors were kind of just set up for disaster. So it's just really unfortunate. Michael B. Jordan, Johnny Storm, aka Human Torch. I mean, everybody loves Michael B. Jordan. Everybody knows of him. He, of course, his big film of the year this year is Sinners, where he plays twins, and he does it very, very well. It's one of the best vampire films I've ever seen, so definitely check that out if you haven't. He, of course, is Adonis Creed in the Creed series. He's in Black Panther as Killmonger. Let's see what else. I think I first saw him in was The Wire. Then he went on to do Without Remorse in the Amazon movie. He was in Just Mercy. Fruitvale Station, I think, was like his first big film with Ryan Coogler. And he's kind of attached to him right now. He was in Friday Night Lights, Law and Order, Bones. Like, he's been in a bunch of stuff over the years, and he is not slowing down at all. He seems to be one of those actors that once he is ready for that next phase in his life, he will become a writer-director. He actually directed Creed 3, I believe. Let me double check that. That way I don't tell you wrong. If he wasn't a director, he was definitely a huge producer / writer on it. Let me see if I can find it here. Creed 3. Yes, he was director. I did remember that right. So yeah, he's going to probably be kind of in that John Krasinski phase where he'll do his acting and then eventually he'll move into directing and writing, which is great. Jamie Bell, who I love, I think he's a very underrated actor just because of the projects he ends up being attached to don't go very well. For me, I think the first film I ever saw him in was in Jumper. If you've never seen Jumper, that is the Hayden Christensen-led kind of superhero film where he has the power of teleportation alongside Jamie Bell. Samuel L. Jackson is part of this society that is tasked to hunt down teleporters because they see him as a menace to society. So they end up teaming up. But Jamie Bell is a very underrated actor. But like I said, because of the things that he was attached to, looking at his IMDb, Snowpiercer, he was great in there. The Eagle alongside Channing Tatum, he was actually really good in there. I think that's a very underrated movie. Defiance, I think, is my favorite performance by him as Daniel Craig's younger brother. If you haven't seen Defiance, definitely check that out. I think that's one of the better like World War II central movies about the Bazowski brothers and how they evaded the Nazis during World War II. Check out that. That's a film that I hope to do on the podcast for sure. He was in King Kong. Like he's been in some big blockbuster movies. It's just I don't think he ever had the chance to just be thrown out there and lead a movie. He's always the kind of the side character, which I think is. I'm curious to see how he would do leading a movie, but I think that's kind of his sweet spot, is like the second or third lead. It kind of just lets him cook for a few scenes, and he doesn't feel that pressure of leading an entire movie. So, but I really like Jamie Bell. It's just unfortunate that what he was given in this film wasn't a whole lot, and the CGI with the Thing was just very, very terrible. So it's just, this could have been a really good movie, and I think there is a good movie in there somewhere. It's just the final product that Fox gave to us is just horrendous, and very, very unfortunate. Victor Von Doom, played by Toby Kebbell, who I've recognized, but I can't think of a single thing that he was in, so I'm going to pull up his IMDb. He was in Warcraft. Yep, I remember him in that now. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I don't remember who he plays in there. Oh, he's Koba. Well, that makes sense. He's a jackass in here, and he's a jackass in Planet of the Apes. Bloodshot. I remember that. Boy, Bloodshot. That was a movie, wasn't it? With Vin Diesel having superpowers. Man, that was a terrible movie, too. Looking at his IMDb. Oh, yeah, he was in Kong. I think he was one of the soldiers in there. He was Chapman. That's right. That's where I remember him from. It was Kong. And then, yep, he was in Black Mirror. I remember that episode. That was the one where I believe was the eyeballs. They install the eyeballs so you can go through your memories. That was a pretty wild episode. Prince of Persia. I think he was the bad guy in there. So, yeah, he's a good actor. It's just the projects he's attached to doesn't do him any justice. And this one definitely is like the worst. The way they did his story and the way Doctor Doom looked at the end was terrible. It was just terrible. Dr. Franklin Storm, who is an actor. If you played his voice, I could picture him in his mind. But I can't name a single movie he's been in other than this one. And that's Rake E. Cathy. He is the father of Sue and Johnny Storm. Let me pull up his IMDb here. He was in SWAT. Oh, The Mask. I remember that. He was, what's-his-face's buddy in there. Oh, he was Dorian's henchman. That's where he's the one that gets shot. I remember that. He was in Luke Cage. Don't remember him in there. So, yeah, so The Mask and Fantastic Four, that's all. Oh, he was in SWAT? I don't remember him in SWAT. I'm going to have to rewatch that. I don't remember him in there. But, yeah, The Mask and the Fantastic Four. But, yeah, he's got one of those distinct voices that if you blindfolded me and played it, I could picture him in his mind. I just can't name of a single movie other than this. But now I know The Flash. And then the last cast member I'm going to touch on is Tim Blake Nelson as Dr. Allen. I absolutely love Tim Blake Nelson. I think he's very underrated. I think the first thing I ever saw him in was Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Alongside George Clooney and John Turturro. Dr. Allen in this movie is he's kind of an antagonist, but not really. He wants to turn the Fantastic Four into weapons for the military. So he sends Johnny and Ben on these missions to help protect the U.S. From their enemies in the Middle East. Eventually, he gets killed off by Victor Von Doom, which I think is one of the best scenes in the movie, is where Victor awakens from his coma or whatever, and he explodes the doctor's minds, including Tim Blake Nelson's brain, with his mind and blows him up, and all you see is the blood spurt in the medical suit. I think that's probably one of the best effects and best scenes in the movie, other than Michael B. Jordan flying around, which I think they actually did a pretty good job by the way he looked when he was in full flame mode. But yeah, Tim Blake Nelson, very, very underrated actor. He, of course, is in the MCU now, or was, as the I can't remember. He was in Captain America, and I can't remember. Oh, Samuel Stearns. That's right, Dr. Stearns, the guy with the weird brain thing. So that's rounding out the cast. Looking at it today, it's a pretty heavy hitter class. But it's just unfortunate that they were tied to this terrible script and this version that the studio wanted over the director. Action sequences were actually kind of fun. They didn't look the greatest, especially when we get to that other dimension where they fight Victor. It's just kind of a video game at that point. Very mid 2000 type superhero movie where we go to this open area and it's got this beam shooting up into the light, into the sky, and they have to shut it off. It gave me Avengers vibes, where Avengers came out 3 years before this. Loki sets up that beam, opening the portal up into the sky. Basically, they copied and pasted that and put it into here. So that was really a bad decision on their part. But I do like some of the action. The way they made Doctor Doom's powers were a little bit closer to the comic book. It wasn't that electricity power or lightning power that they gave Julian McMahon in the first two films. They actually kind of gave him this mythical, magical, green-looking power that he does have in the comics. So that part of the character was a little bit closer to what he's supposed to be. I'm very curious to see what the MCU does with Doctor Doom as far as his powers, because it's been done a couple times now, and every time it's not so great. But I have faith in Kevin Feige and what he's doing. He gave us a really good Fantastic Four movie finally. So I'm excited for Doctor Doom. But Johnny Storm flying around with the Flame On mode was really cool. I like the fighting that he does with there and the effects around him. It was really cool. CGI is kind of tying into there. The CGI was terrible, except for Human Torch. You can tell that they really put in the effort for Human Torch, not so much, Ben or any of the fighting. So the plot and story, pretty terrible. I've already touched on it a few times. Just doesn't make sense. They changed the backstory of how they got their powers. It's kind of a leave it and forget it storyline. They're researching making teleportation between dimensions possible. They end up teleporting there. They all get their powers. They get sucked back. But Victor ends up getting left there, so he becomes part of the planet. And then it warps his mind, and now he thinks that's his home instead of Earth. And it's just terrible. Terrible written script for sure. The part with them, now that I'm remembering, the part with them, how they actually got their powers was kind of ridiculous now that I say it out loud and think about it. Where Ben gets into his pod, so rocks are flying in, that's how he gets it. Johnny Storm ends up getting burst into flames, so that's how he gets his powers. And then Miles Teller, I'm still kind of confused on how he gets his powers. I don't know if it has anything to do with the explosion stretching his body or something, but they never really show you what link Miles Teller gets to have the stretchy powers. Kate Mara is a little bit confusing too, where she's sitting behind a laptop, but then everything explodes in the lab, and then she ends up turning invisible and having shield powers. I don't know. It's kind of weird how they got their powers to begin with. I have a note in here, what went right, what went wrong. I've kind of touched on it already. The only few things that went right was the way Human Torch looked. I actually like Michael B. Jordan as Human Torch / Johnny Storm. I think he was great. He was very arrogant, very childish, very immature, which is what we all think of Johnny Storm. Victor Von Doom's powers were a little closer to what the comic book is, so that was a plus. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. The suits look terrible. They were kind of like handmade suits to help control their powers that the government made. They look terrible. The way they ended the movie with trying to come up with a name for the team. Ben says, it's fantastic. And Miles Teller looks at him and goes, say that again? He goes, it's fantastic. And then he goes, oh, I have an idea. And then they just leave it there, and then the title pops out. Worst ending ever in a Marvel movie, in a movie ever. I remember rolling my eyes really hard at the end of the movie, walking out. I actually saw this with one of my brothers, and we both agreed, that was a terrible movie. And I'm very disappointed because we were so excited for another Fantastic Four movie. But yeah, everything else just went wrong. The story, the CGI, the script, the casting, the way that Dr. Doom looked was terrible. The way Ben was terrible as the Thing. The Tim Blake Nelson character was ridiculous. It's just, the whole movie is just wrong, except for a couple things that I pointed out that in my mind, were done as well as they could in this situation. So kind of tying into what went wrong, the first fun fact I have is Stan Lee declined to make a cameo in this film. So if Stan Lee declines to appear in a Marvel film, that tells you right there that this movie is dog crap. Not even Stan Lee has time to make a 10-second cameo for a movie. So if you can take away anything about how bad this movie is, just remember that Stan Lee declined to appear in here for a cameo, which he does in every other Marvel film, no matter what it is. He declined this one, so just let that sink in on how bad this movie was. Talked about this already, but getting into some more details on it. Josh Trank, his original version was 2 hours and 20 minutes, but the studio ended up cutting it to 1 hour and 40. Thank God, because I could not do a 2 hour and 20-minute version of this unless it was Josh Trank's original version. I'm very curious to see what that original version was. I'm going to start the hashtag, release the Trank cut, man. I want to see it. I want to see that version of this movie if he really thinks that it was much better. Which kind of ties into the next fact I have for today. The studio demanded reshoots because they were unsatisfied with the direction. Trank released a tweet prior to the film's release stating that a year ago I had a fantastic vision of this movie and it would have received great reviews. You'll probably never see it. That's the reality, though. If it truly was a great version of this, like, release the Trank cut. I want to see it. I want to see that 2 hour, 20 minutes that he had planned. I'm sure it's stashed in a vault somewhere. Maybe Disney will go underground to the abandoned Fox studio and maybe release it on Disney Plus. That'd be pretty cool. Box office analysts have said that Trank's tweet may have cost 20th Century Fox $10 million in opening weekend ticket sales. No shit. I mean, if the director tells you straight out, this is not my version of the movie, this is the studio's version, people aren't going to go spend $10, $15 on a ticket to go see this movie. They're going to wait till it gets on DVD and go pay the $20 to own the movie, and they can watch it forever, you know. It's, yeah, no brainer. The garage that the kid version of Reed works in is actually the same garage that Biff from Back to the Future Part 2 keeps his car where Marty steals it. That was a pretty cool fun fact. I didn't know that, so that was interesting. 20th Century Fox had a 7-year window to produce another Fantastic Four film after the release of Rise of the Silver Surfer. Otherwise, the characters would revert back to Marvel. That doesn't sound like a bad idea. Marvel actually offered to extend the rights to Daredevil if they gave him back the rights to Fantastic Four. Fox, of course, as you know, ultimately rejected their offer. Daredevil reverted back to Marvel in 2015, and we got this movie in 2015. But now Marvel, after purchasing 20th Century Fox, now has Fantastic Four and Daredevil. So I think Marvel ended up out on top. It just took a little bit longer of a time frame. Mads Mikkelsen auditioned for the role of Victor Von Doom, but walked out of this audition. Thank God, because I don't want this on his IMDb. Mads Mikkelsen is way above this movie. He also auditioned for Reed Richards for the 2005 Fantastic Four film. That would have been very interesting. I would have liked to see his take on Reed Richards. I think he would have done a pretty good job. He, of course, went on to be the villain in Doctor Strange in the MCU, so he did end up dipping his toe into the Marvel-verse. Then the last one I have, Josh Trank fought for Allison Williams to play Sue Storm, but Fox overruled him and cast Kate Mara instead. I think that's an interesting choice. Allison Williams, who you're probably not familiar with, the most recent project she's been in would be Megan 2.0 this year. I would have been very interested to see her take on Sue Storm. Of course, I think she's probably most well known for Get Out, and a series of yeah, that's right, she was in there. But so when the studio overrides your casting, that again tells me that this movie is gonna suck. Because I think Allison Williams would have been a much better Sue Storm than Kate Mara. And that I just feel really bad for Josh Trank. You know, he's even stated in another tweet when this movie came out that he will never do a superhero movie ever again. And I don't blame him. It sounds like working with Fox was a nightmare back then. And sometimes, you know, you hear stories about how Disney is this way. They have their agenda. You know, you have to check the boxes. You got to have this scene, you have this scene, you have this scene, because eventually it's going to lead into this movie. And that's part of the reason why, you know, the famously Edgar Wright left the Ant-Man project, was because he wanted to make it its own thing. But Marvel at the time had their own agenda. You know, this scene, you need to put this scene in there and this scene in there because it's going to lead into this movie three movies down the road. That sounds like a very similar situation with Josh Trank. Same thing with David Fincher when he was making Aliens 3, I believe. A lot of studio overtake, a lot of demands from the studio heads on how they want to make his movie. My message to all the studios out there, just let the director show his vision. You know, we've seen what happens when a studio oversteps on a movie set. You know, Zack Snyder is probably the one that was able to overcome that because he got his version released eventually because he funded it himself. I mean, if Josh Trank has to fund it himself, I would say release your version, man. I think a lot of people would be curious to see what your version would have looked like, especially if you're saying it would have got great reviews, you know? So yeah, release the Trank cut. That's what I'm going to end with today's episode. And I'm going to hashtag that on social media posts. So feel free to join in because I want to see the Josh Trank cut of this movie. So yeah, that's Fantastic Four 2015. What a terrible movie. But I'm glad I got to rewatch it. I haven't seen it in probably 7 years. So it was a fun rewatch. It was fun to tear this movie apart again. And it was almost like watching it with fresh eyes because it's been so long. But definitely, I mean, I guess if you're curious, if you've never seen this movie, go check it out. If you have seen it, I mean, it's part of the Fantastic Four / Marvel universe. I mean, go ahead and rewatch it. I mean, you paid the money to watch it, or you're paying for the streaming service that it's on. I think this might be on Disney Plus now. I think all 3 Fantastic Four movies are on there. So go check that out. But yeah, terrible movie. Speaking of terrible movies, let's end the episode like we always do with the ranking segment. I'm going to go over my top 10 worst Marvel films that we've gotten so far. Okay, I'm going to run through my top 10 worst Marvel films so far. I'm going to start at number 10. I'm going to work my way to number 1 being the worst out of all of them. So number 10, I've got Ben Affleck's Daredevil back from 2003. I did an episode on it for the podcast earlier this year, so go check out all my thoughts for that. But this was a terrible movie. The suit looked terrible. The story was bad. The CGI wasn't as great. Ben Affleck was actually a pretty decent Matt Murdock / Daredevil. Jennifer Garner, I love her as Elektra. Colin Farrell as Bullseye was a little ridiculous. Michael Clark Duncan, rest in peace to him. He was a pretty decent Wilson Fisk / Kingpin. But this movie is just held back by it being early 2000s script, early 2000s CGI. It's just really ridiculous, especially now that we have the Charlie Cox version of Daredevil from Netflix and Disney now. It's just a terrible movie. So that is number 10. At number 9, we have 2003's Hulk, starring Eric Bana. This, again, is a movie that I did earlier this year, so go check out that review episode. Eric Bana plays Bruce Banner / Hulk. Jennifer Connelly, who I absolutely love, is Betty Ross. Sam Elliott is General Ross. And we have Josh Lucas as Talbot, kind of the antagonist. And then Nick Nolte as Eric Bana's father, who he fights at the end as that ridiculous storm cloud. The one positive I have for this movie is I like how the Hulk looks, and I like the fact that as he gets angrier, he gets bigger, just like he does in the comics. Other than that, everything else in this movie is terrible. The script, a lot of the CGI, the acting, and I think that's mainly due to the script, because we have a pretty high-caliber actor class. I mean, Eric Bana is a great actor. It's just that I just didn't believe him as Bruce Banner, and I blame that more for the script and the direction that he was given. This was directed by Ang Lee, who I'm not really a fan of, mainly because of this movie. So that is number 9 is Hulk. Number 8 is The Marvels. This is the Captain Marvel sequel in the MCU. Brie Larson plays Carol Danvers / Captain Marvel. We get to see a bunch of people return, like Monica Rambeau. Miss Marvel from her own TV show, Samuel Jackson, returns as Nick Fury. This is just a straight up terrible movie, terrible superhero movie, terrible Marvel film. It just doesn't work. It was way too woke, and not in a good way. I know some of these Disney movies do that woke thing pretty well. It's just this was really egregious, and you can easily spot it. It's just this film does not work and probably should not be made. It serves no purpose in the universe as a whole, other than maybe expanding Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel character from her own TV show. That's the only thing I took out of it, because I really like Kamala Khan in this universe. And I'm really excited to see her second season of Miss Marvel and see what she does in the Avengers movie. But that's the only part I was really interested in and enjoyed. Number 7 is Morbius. This is the Sony movie on Dr. Michael Morbius, who becomes a vampire-like hero. This is a Spider-Man villain. If you are familiar with the Spider-Man lore, Jared Leto plays Morbius. Matt Smith plays the villain in the movie. I didn't care for it. The CGI was bad. The acting was bad. I'm not a huge Jared Leto fan, so that's probably why. I didn't care for the direction, the script. It's just a bad movie all around. So that is number 7 for me. I'm digging in the archive for this one, but number 6 is Howard the Duck. Many of you probably have never seen this movie. This was released in 86. So way before I was born. I didn't watch this until I was probably 5 or 6 years old. It stars Leah Thompson as Beverly. Ed Gale is in the duck suit as Howard the Duck. It's just a terrible movie. If you've seen on social media or come across your internet feed at all, it's that scene between Howard the Duck and Leah Thompson where they try to hook up together in bed, and the running joke is, wow, Marty's mom divorced his dad to hook up with a duck from space. It's a pretty bad movie. We've had Howard the Duck appear in the MCU via James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I think, if I remember right, Seth Green voiced him, which he did a pretty good job in the 1 or 2 scenes that he was in. But Howard the Duck is a really, really bad movie. Number 5. This is where I put the 2015 Fantastic Four movie for all the reasons that I've said previously in today's episode. Number 4 is Elektra. This is the spin-off, sequel, whatever you want to call it, for Ben Affleck's Daredevil. Jennifer Garner returns as Elektra. I've only seen the movie once, and it was pretty bad. So that is why it is number 4 on my list. Number 3, Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. This is the sequel to Nicolas Cage's Ghost Rider movie, which I like the first Ghost Rider movie. I did not have the heart to put that one on this list, but I do have the heart to give its sequel on this list because it was a really, really bad movie, really bad sequel. Totally forgot Idris Elba was in there, and just looking at the cast list right now. But yeah, this is what killed Nicolas Cage's chance of making Ghost Rider a Marvel franchise. They eventually did go and redo Ghost Rider and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. on the MCU side. But I did like Nicolas Cage in that first Ghost Rider film as Ghost Rider. I'm hoping to do that one on the show for sure. Eternals. This is one of the worst Marvel movies I've ever seen. That is why it's number 2. It is dead last on my MCU rankings list. I did an episode of this way back when it came out in 2021. It was one of the first episodes on the Cinematic Reviews show. So go ahead and check that back in the Cinematic Archives if you want to listen to my thoughts on that one. But yeah, this was just a straight up bad movie. We haven't got any follow up to it other than Captain America Brave New World, where we see the frozen Celestial in the ocean, where Captain America fights the Rogue Jetson. But other than that, we haven't got any lead up with a sequel. We haven't got the return of Blade, who Mahershala Ali pops up in the post-credit scene. Kit Harington shows up as a character in there, but we haven't got any follow-up from him. I guess he's supposed to be playing the Black Knight character in Marvel. But yeah, this is just a terrible script, terrible movie. The action was fine, but it's just one of the most irrelevant movies I've ever seen. And then number 1 is Madam Web. This is another Spider-Man spinoff from Sony. This is the one that probably killed Sony's chances of ever making a good movie. We did get Kraven the Hunter afterwards, which is an okay movie. That's why it's not in this list. I actually kind of enjoyed Kraven the Hunter. But this one for sure. Dakota Johnson plays Cassandra Webb, who becomes Madam Web at the end of this movie. Sydney Sweeney, I'm sorry that she had to be a part of this movie. But I love Sydney Sweeney. She did the best she can with this movie. I don't blame her at all. Isabel Merce, who I absolutely love as well. She was unfortunately attached to this movie. Yeah, this is just a really bad movie. We have what was it? The anti-Spider-Man chasing them, I guess is what I'm going to call him. And it's just, they all eventually become Spider-Man in the universe, and Madam Web connects them together through her powers with the Webverse. But it's just, or the Spider-Verse is what they call it. But it's just a really, really terrible movie. One of the worst movies I've ever seen, and definitely the worst Marvel movie I've ever seen. Even worse than Eternals, which is a really, really hard thing to do. You are worse than the Eternals. So you get the trophy for that, I guess. But yeah, no, it's just a terrible film. So those are my 10 worst Marvel films. I'm going to post this on social media so you can check it out for yourself. Looking ahead at the schedule, I'm going to do a bunch of pre-recording over the next few days because I will be going on vacation to Arizona. So I'm going to release the Fantastic Four First Steps episode first, probably Monday, Tuesday. And then the Happy Gilmore 2 review episode will release later next week, probably Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. So be on the lookout for that. And then I'm still figuring out the schedule we're going to do after that. The theater releases have kind of died down in August. A bunch of movies that are coming out that I'll probably react to, but I won't be making big episodes on. So we'll probably dive into some of the other things I had planned, like Training Day, End of Watch, the Lord of the Rings trilogy are ones that I want to tackle this year. So we'll probably dive back into previously released films going forward. So that'll do it for today's episode. Everybody stay fantastic and go check out Fantastic Four First Steps now in theaters. See you all next time.